Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar session. My name is Sam Goodwin. I'm from UK Study Options, and I'm really excited to be presenting today's webinar from UKSO headquarters. The webinar will be about 1 hour. It will include a presentation which will last about 30 or 40 minutes, and there will be a chance for questions. So please do save up all the questions you have, pop them into the Q&A function, and I'll make sure to cover as many of those as I can at the end of the presentation. So just letting everyone join the session now. Hopefully everyone's on board with the audio and you can hear me clearly. So just a quick note about UK Study Options. We are independent UK university advisors. We are based in the UK and we help and support anyone looking to study a degree at a UK university. We know a lot about the fee status rules as well, and this presentation is going to focus on the UK university fee status rules, and especially for expat teachers. So if you are a teacher, or in fact anyone working at an international school all around the world, hopefully we'll be able to give you some really useful information relevant for your circumstances. But again, I'm sure you've got loads of really great questions. So please jump in with your questions at the end of the presentation and we'll make sure we can help you. So to get started, I'm going to quickly talk about what makes us the experts, because you probably haven't come across anyone who has claimed to be experts in UK university fee status before. So why should you listen to me when it comes to the home fee eligibility rules? And why should you consider using our service to support your application later on as well? So myself and the whole team at UK Study Options do have extensive experience working in UK universities, over 40 years of combined experience working in admissions, student recruitment, student admissions. And so we are all university people. We have that insider knowledge when it comes to universities, policies and processes in this area. Additionally, and most importantly, we are fully trained on the fee status rules. So you can see there a logo for UKISA. UKISA are the UK Council for International Student Affairs, and they train all of the universities on how to assess fee status. And we sit alongside the universities. We go to all the training sessions and get exactly the same training that the universities receive. So we can keep up to date with all the rules, any changes in the rules, which do happen quite frequently. And so our experience and our training means that we do have a very strong track record of success. In 2024, 99% of families that we supported did achieve a home outcome with their application. We are in a very unique position where we are supporting hundreds of families each year with their applications. So we can see right across the UK at all the universities, any changes in trends, any different approaches to policies, to the questions that they're asking you, the forms they're asking you to fill in. So we can see all of that immediately, and we can pass that on to our current customers to help you achieve success with your application. As far as we know, we are the only independent advisors on UK university fee status that do offer a service to parents. And you can see there some more logos of our credentials and memberships. If you do work at an international school, you are probably familiar with organisations such as COBIS and also FOBISIA, which are British International School Associations. So we have been through their vetting process. So they have checked out and made sure that we have that quality, that integrity, that we align with the values of schools and their members in the services that we offer. We are also international ACAC members. We are UCAS International Advisor Network members. We also partner with GEMS Education, so GEMS for Life. GEMS schools, especially in the Middle East, we do have a small discount for GEMS families. So if you do work at a GEMS school, then you are in line at the moment for a small discount on the price of our service. Well, we're going to start off with some fee status myths because there's a lot of misinformation online about fee status, a lot of misunderstandings about fee status because people are getting information perhaps from friends or families, other people at the school, other people that you know. And it's really important to separate the myths from the facts when it comes to fee status so it doesn't affect your preparation and doesn't affect your chances of success in getting home fees when you apply. So hopefully by the end of this presentation, you'll be really clear on what is a myth and what is a fact, so you have the best chance to prepare well for your application. So myth number one, a British passport gets you home fees. Well, in fact, a British passport on its own is not a guarantee of home fee status. Universities are going to look at many other aspects of your circumstances to determine whether they can justify giving you home fees. In fact, you don't need to have a British passport. There are many groups of people who could be eligible for home fees without having a British passport. So that is just one aspect that they look at. It is quite possible that a British passport holder could be an overseas fee payer. So it's really important to understand the further rules and requirements to get home fees. Next myth, you have to live in the UK to get home fees for that 3-year period. This is a really common misunderstanding, and it's understandable why people might think this given the way that the fee status rules are written. But this is not true. We support families from all around the world to show how they are eligible for home fees, despite the fact that they are living outside of the UK. Maybe they are temporarily working at an international school. It is still possible to be eligible for home fee status. There is no requirement to be living in the UK. The fee status rules actually refer to ordinary residents. And we're going to look at that in more detail to see how you could be an ordinary resident of the UK, even though you might live outside of the UK on a day-to-day basis. You can change to home fees if you become eligible during your degree. This is not true for the vast majority of those applying to a UK university, especially if you are a British national when you start your course. It's not possible to acquire or obtain eligibility during your degree. So the fee status that is given to you in your offer and when you accept the offer is the fee status that you'll have for the whole duration of the course, even year 2 and year 3 of your course. So it is really crucial that when you get that offer that you check the fees that they have given you. If the university has given you overseas fees and you believe that you are a home fee payer, it's important to ask them to reconsider, to challenge, to go through the appeals process before you accept the offer and before you start your course, because it may not be possible after that. Next myth, our friends got home fees. We're in a similar situation to them, so we'll be fine. This is another common one I hear a lot. And you'd think this is a reasonable assumption to make, but it's not a safe assumption. So when you are talking to other people at the school, it's really dangerous to make assumptions about your eligibility based on what others have achieved. There are many factors that mean your application, every application is unique. So all of these things that can play a part in your chance of getting home fees, such as which university you apply to, which course you apply to, whether you're applying to a university in England or Scotland or elsewhere in the UK, plus all those really personal aspects of your circumstances, such as nationality or nationalities, where you've lived, your travel pattern, your employment. all of these factors will play a part in whether you can get home fees. And it's not going to be the same as anyone else. In fact, even in siblings in the same family can have different outcomes when it comes to their fee status if they are applying in different years. So it's really important to investigate your own case and your own eligibility, and don't make any assumptions, because this really could affect your chances of success, and you could end up paying those much higher fees unnecessarily. And the final myth: we don't have to worry about fee status until the UCAS application. Well, I really want to debunk this myth today. It is so crucial to think about your fee status as early as possible. If you leave it until the time you are applying to university, or even worse, when the universities start asking you questions about your eligibility, it could be too late by then to be successful in presenting your case for home fee status. So universities are going to be looking at your circumstances for that full 3-year period before the course starts. So ideally, you want to be thinking about this and preparing at least 3 or 4 years before the university application. But what is fee status? What is the basics when it comes to UK university funding and tuition fees? Well, all publicly funded universities in the UK need to distinguish between home fees and overseas fee-paying students on their courses. And this is because for each home student that enrolls on one of their courses, they are able to claim public funding from the government that helps to subsidise the cost of delivering the course to those students. This means that for home students, the tuition fees are capped, currently at around about £9,500 per year. And it means whatever course, whatever university you apply to as a home student, you won't pay more than that capped amount. However, there's no public funding available for overseas fee-paying students. So universities are going to be passing on the full cost of delivering the course to overseas students in the form of tuition fees. And we'll have a look at what that means in terms of the levels of fees you'll pay as an overseas fee-paying student. So universities will be undertaking a fee status assessment on every application that they receive to make sure they are charging the correct amount of fees. Now, it is the case that each university in the UK has the full autonomy to make the final decision on the fee status of students on their courses. So with over 150 different universities in the UK, it is the case that some universities can be stricter than others, make it tougher to get home fee status. And so that means which university you apply to can have a big impact on your chances of getting home fees. It is also the case that your fee status can have an impact on the admissions process. So whether you get assessed as a home fee payer or an overseas fee payer can directly affect your chances of even getting an offer on the course. And we'll look at a specific example of that later in the presentation. So universities are undertaking these fee status assessments, and they are using rules set by the UK government. But these rules are problematic. They are very complex, they're very technical, and there's a lot of grey area in the rules. So there's a lot of areas where universities need to make their own judgments and use their discretion. And especially for expat families who are often considered to be on the borderline when it comes to whether or not you fall into one of these home fee categories, it can be very unpredictable, and it can also be inconsistent. So if you apply to 5 universities with your UCAS application, it could be that some of those universities will decide that you are a home fee payer, and some of those universities will decide that you are an overseas fee payer. This just reflects the very subjective and discretionary nature of the assessment that universities are undertaking. It is perfectly legitimate under these rules and under this process that 2 universities looking at exactly the same case could come to different outcomes that are both perfectly valid. So what happens if you don't get assessed as a home fee payer? Well, overseas fee-paying students pay much higher tuition fees, anywhere between £36,000 and £423,000 in tuition fees for a UK degree. So this is obviously a huge range, and it just reflects the fact that each university is setting their own fees for overseas fee-paying students. As well as these much higher tuition fees, overseas students are not eligible for student finance. So you are not going to be able to get that student loan from the government to help you with the cost of your tuition fees and your living costs while you're studying in the UK. These are reserved for home students. So you will also need to think about how you are going to fund the cost of your degree in the UK. There is also a wider context to fee status. So it's not just the rules and it's not just your own personal circumstances and how they fit into the rules, but all of these other external factors that will play a part in your chances of success in getting home fees, because it is very much a political and economic issue. And all these external factors shape the way that the government and also the universities set their policies and interpret eligibility for home status, because it's an ongoing thing that can change year to year. So for instance, this year we've seen a couple of things that could impact on fee status, including the immigration white paper, which explored a proposal that the government may introduce a levy on universities and their overseas tuition fee income. The proposal is that effectively there will be a tax of 6% on international student fees. And of course, if this was to happen, we could see those overseas tuition fee rates jump up to 10% perhaps very quickly. So again, this could affect you. You could get caught up in this as expats. If you do get assessed as overseas fee-paying students, you could end up paying even higher tuition fees. We've also seen recent negotiations between the UK government and the EU about a youth mobility scheme. Again, there's been some discussion about fee status for those in Europe and EU citizens. Again, this could impact you as expats as well. We know that universities have for many years been complaining that the funding they receive from the government is not enough to cover the cost of delivering the course to their home students. And many universities are looking are forecast to be in deficit in this year. And this is a big problem for universities. So overseas students, these international students coming to the UK, paying much higher tuition fees, are very desirable and very profitable for universities. And all universities want to increase the number of international students on their courses, but they are facing problems, they're facing challenges to do this. So if they're not attracting the international students coming to pay the higher prices, then it's true that they often tighten up and tighten their policies when it comes to these borderline cases. As expat families, you could be facing even tougher challenges to get those home decisions in the future. So also really important to keep all of this in mind as well. But let's look now at some illustrative examples of the difference between a home fee payer and an overseas fee paying student on a UK degree. So this first example is a medical degree at an English university. So really important to note here, we are in England because there are different rules in each of the UK nations. So England, Scotland, Northern Ireland and Wales each have a different set of fee status rules, and this also is very much a complicating factor for those applying outside of the UK. So if you apply to a university in England under these English rules, you could be eligible for home fees, but if you apply to a university in Scotland under the different rules in Scotland, it could be that you are an overseas fee payer. So really important for you to look at your own eligibility and eligibility and the rules and requirements at the universities that you wish to apply to. So looking now at this first example, you can see there the tuition fees. On the left-hand side for home students, it's £9,535 per year. This is the capped rate, the cap set by the government. And so as a home fee paying student, you won't pay more than that capped amount. So it doesn't matter what course you're studying, whether it's law, arts, science, even medicine, you won't pay more than £9,535 per year. But you can see on the right-hand side, the tuition fees for overseas fee-paying students are much higher, up to £70,000 per year. Up to is important. So there are universities in England where you can study a medical degree for less than £70,000 per year. You might find a university offering fees for £40,000 or £50,000 per year. But the most expensive currently is at Cambridge University, and you'll pay £70,554 per year in tuition fees. Just a quick tip when applying to a medical degree, do check the duration of the course. Some medical degrees in England can be 5 years in length. In fact, at Cambridge, it's a 6-year course. So really important to understand how many years you are going to be paying those tuition fees for. The student loan is different as well. So you can see for home students, yes, it is possible to apply for student finance and get that loan from the government to help you with your costs of study. I would point out here that this is not guaranteed. This will be a separate application and a separate decision made by Student Finance England or the relevant student loan company. So even if the university did assess you as a home fee payer for tuition fee purposes, it is possible that you could be rejected for the student loan. However, if you successfully argued your case for eligibility for for the tuition fees at the university, you are likely to be in a good position to argue your eligibility for loan purposes. But these are not available to overseas fee-paying students. They are reserved for home students. So if you are an overseas fee payer, then you will need to have alternative funding for your university degree. And finally, if we look at the admission, it's similarly on a different basis. So for home students, it's competitive to get that place on the course, to get an offer on a medical degree. We know they are oversubscribed. But it's different again for overseas fee-paying students, very competitive. And this is because for medicine courses, also dentistry and veterinary courses, these are competitive entry courses, and the government has set a cap on the number of places that universities can offer to overseas fee-paying students on these courses. So if you get assessed as an overseas fee-paying student on one of these courses, you'll be competing for just 7% of places on that course. So immediately your chances of getting an offer could be much lower. The entry requirements, the grades you might need to meet to get one of these small number of places that are reserved for overseas students could be much higher. So this is an example where your fee status directly affects your chances of even getting that offer on the course. But let's look now at a different example. So this is a business degree at a Scottish university. So we are now in Scotland, so we are under a different set of rules in Scotland. So for tuition fees, you can see for home students, there are 2 levels of tuition fee in Scotland. In Scotland, they still have free tuition for Scottish home students. So if you are from Scotland and you get assessed as a home fee payer, then the most that you will pay on the small number of courses that do charge fees to Scottish students is £1,820 per year. But if you are from England, Wales, or Northern Ireland, they have a middle rate of fees. It's called RUK or Rest of UK, and you will pay £9,535 per year. So the equivalent of home fees in England. But again, these are much lower than what you'll pay as an overseas fee-paying student, up to £32,000 per year. There are business degrees in Scotland that you can study for less than that, but currently the most expensive is at St Andrews University, where you'll pay £32,000 per year for a business degree. Another quick tip here, when applying to undergraduate degrees in Scotland, do check the duration of the course. Some courses in Scotland can be 4 years in length, so really important not to get caught out for budgeting purposes. The student loan is on the same basis as the previous example. So home students do have the ability to apply for and get student finance, get that student loan from the government. Not guaranteed, but you're a good chance of success with that financial support. These are not available to overseas fee-paying students. They are reserved for home students. And then finally, in terms of admission, in this example, there is no difference between your chances of getting an offer based on your fee status. So in this example, it's on the same basis. So not too competitive. Depending on which university in Scotland you apply to, it's a little bit easier to get a place on the course as opposed to a medical degree. But it won't make a difference whether you get assessed as a home fee payer or an overseas fee paying student. So let's look now at home fee eligibility and what the rules actually say when it comes to how you can be eligible for home fees at a UK university. We are looking here at the category that is most relevant to expat families living outside of the UK. So British families outside of the UK, also Irish families would be on the same basis. There are many different categories of home fees. In England, there are over 25 categories alone. So if you don't fit into this category, it could still be possible that you are eligible for home fees under a different category, but this one is the most relevant, and there are a few requirements under this category. So firstly, you must be settled in the UK when you start your university degree. Additionally, you must be ordinarily resident in the UK for that 3-year period before the start of university. Or if you're not ordinarily resident, there are provisions that say you still get home fees if you are only temporarily absent from the UK for some specific temporary employment. So if we look at some of these key terms in more detail, settled, what does settled mean? It means both ordinarily resident and having no restriction on the length of stay in the UK. So we are going to look at ordinary residence next, but essentially this is an immigration requirement. So if you are a British national, if you have a passport from the Republic of Ireland, you have no restriction on entering and staying in the UK as long as you like. So you have the potential to show how you can be settled. But there are wider groups that can meet this requirement as well. So if you have indefinite leave to remain, if you have right of abode in the UK, if you have settled status under the EU settlement scheme, then similarly, you have no restriction on your length of stay in the UK, and potentially you could show how you can be settled. I would point out here that the student, the child themselves, does not need to meet this requirement. If they have a relevant family member who can tick this box, then they also have a pathway to home fees. Now, under the rules, a relevant family member is a parent or a grandparent or a spouse. So if a child is not a British citizen, but their parent or perhaps even their grandparent is a British citizen, then they could still get home fees based on the fact that they're relevant, they are a family member of a settled person. I would also point out that in terms of the definition of parent, that could include a step parent or adoptive parent. But even if the child themselves is not a British citizen, they and everyone still needs to meet this next requirement, which is the ordinary residence requirement. And this is a really tricky one because there is no definition of ordinary residence under the rules. So this is an area where universities need to make their own judgments and use their discretion. Many universities will have their own specific policy on how they are going to assess ordinary residents. but an accepted definition of ordinary residence is having a regular, habitual mode of life for a settled purpose in a particular place. And under the fee status rules, this is always assessed over that 3-year period before the university course starts. So you can see here that you don't need to be living in the UK, but you do need to demonstrate to universities how you have this regular habitual life for them to be able to justify giving you home fees on that basis. But we also know that if you are not ordinarily resident, you still get home fees if you are temporarily absent. So if you are temporarily working abroad, you will be treated as though you are ordinarily resident in the UK. And so this can be a pathway for many families to get home fees in the UK, and especially perhaps for expat teachers working outside of the UK. So if you can show that if it wasn't for this specific time-limited employment in this particular place where you are living, you would be living at your ordinary home in the UK, then universities should consider giving you home fees on that basis. There's one further aspect of the rules that I wanted to make you aware of, and that is the main purpose test. And this particularly affects families that have a child in boarding school in the UK, because the main purpose test says that the main purpose for residents in the UK must not have been to receive full-time education. If that is the case, then that actual residence in the UK does not count towards getting home fees for a UK university degree. So if a child is at boarding school in the UK and their parents remain living outside of the UK, the universities are likely to apply this main purpose test. And they will say that if the child wasn't in school in the UK, where would they be living? Normally with their parents outside of the UK. The legal precedent is that a child, a minor, someone who is under 18, is not independent of their parents. As a dependent, their residency status will remain linked to their parents. So this is very much a complicating factor for your case. And what it does mean is that boarding school is not a guarantee of home fees. Even if a child has been living and going to school in the UK for many years, they could still be assessed as an overseas fee payer. You still need to prepare and plan for this application and be able to show your eligibility that as a family, you continue to have an ordinary residence in the UK, or otherwise that you are just temporarily absent from the UK. So all of these rules, but there's a really telling quote here, and this is from UKISA. If you remember, UKISA are the people that train the universities on fee status. There's a lot of useful information and guidance on their website as well. And in their guidance, UKISA say that you, as in the student, might have to persuade an institution that you meet this requirement. And this is really important because UKISA are acknowledging here that universities have a really difficult job to interpret these very complex rules and apply them to everyone's individual circumstances. So you can't assume that universities are going to be able to identify you as a home fee payer. You are going to need to know the rules, know what category of the rules you fit into, and perhaps have to persuade or convince up to 5 different universities of the reasons why you should be considered a home fee payer. So really important that you do this preparation and planning before applying to university. So how can you prepare? What are some top tips to get home fees at a UK university? Number one, consider your eligibility as early as possible. This is really crucial because you don't want to inadvertently lose your eligibility during that crucial 3-year assessment period. So if you've already applied to university, if they're starting to ask you questions, you may not be able to successfully get all the information you need to be able to get that decision in your favor. So really, really important to look at your own case. Don't rely on what others have told you about what your chances might be. Don't make assumptions. Really prepare, investigate, and then you'll be in the best position to be successful with your application. You do want to maintain an ordinary residence in the UK for that 3 years before the start of the university degree. So what does that mean in practical terms? So universities will be looking for a UK home base address in the UK. They want to see this permanent family home that is available and accessible for you to use for this regular, habitual, everyday life that you need to show. As well as the home, they're going to be asking about your travel pattern back to the UK and back to your home in the UK. They want to see that you are making regular trips back each year and that you go back often enough and for long enough to have this day-to-day habitual life there. So if you're working in a school outside of the UK, this is where maybe taking advantage of those school holidays and the ability to return home to the UK could be really crucial. You might be in a really good position to do that, perhaps compared to people who are employed in other occupations where perhaps their annual leave doesn't correspond with that break in the school commitments. It is important because some universities, when they look at travel pattern, they are especially interested in this habitual nature of your travel. So some universities may not particularly be asking you about the dates you go back to the UK, but they may ask you the question, what is your address in the school holidays? They want to see where you call home during the school holidays. So this is an advantage that you might have as a teacher or an employee of an international school in really having a strong part of your case in this aspect. You do also want to keep your absence as temporary as possible, especially when it comes to your employment, perhaps. So if you have a fixed term contract, if you have an end date on your employment, if you've been seconded or posted by your employer, these could be useful things for your application to university. Again, this could be really relevant to your case if you work at a school because we know that most schools are employing their teachers and their staff on fixed term contracts. So this could be relevant to show that, you know, it is for a specified time limited period that you have this employment. So again, this could be something that would be a document that you are presenting to university as part of this case. You want to build your case and gather evidence. This is really crucial because each university is making different interpretations and they are making their own decisions. So what might work for one university might not work for another university. What evidence one university might be asking you for could be different to the evidence that another university asks you for. So you don't want to just have the bare minimum and hope for the best that that's going to work at every university. So I see this a lot when I go to schools and I talk to teachers. They say to me, well, I'm going to be fine. I've got no problem. I've got a temporary contract. I've got a fixed term contract. That's all I need to show to the university. And that could be a very risky strategy because the temporary contract, your 2-year fixed term contract on its own may not be enough. So you don't want to rely just on that. You want to make sure that you have covered all your bases. And when we work with families and we support families with their application, we are looking to build and strengthen their case and make it as watertight as possible so that it can withstand scrutiny, whatever university that you apply to. Remember this temporary absence. It's very open to interpretation, and universities are going to view this very differently. So if you've been outside of the UK for many years, 10 or 15 years perhaps, even though there is no definition of what temporary is, it's possible some universities may say that we don't think that's temporary any longer. Some universities have specific policies where they disregard rolling contracts. So any employment that is on the basis of a rolling contract may be problematic for your chances at those certain universities. Some universities are asking to see that in between your periods of employment, you are returning back to the UK. So you go and do a contract in one country, you return home to the UK and take up another contract somewhere else. So all of these different interpretations means that your case could be viewed very differently from university to university. And this is especially where we help families to describe and show how all these favorable aspects of your circumstances mean that you should be considered as being temporarily absent from the UK. Do remember that you can appeal against an overseas offer. So obviously this is very much late in the process, but in your preparations, do remember that if you get given an offer with overseas fees and you believe that you are a home fee payer, that you challenge the university and ask them to reconsider. All universities do have an internal appeals process. And no one else is going to do this for you. This is up to you. There's no oversight. There's no one checking the decisions that universities are making in this respect. So make sure you do that. But of course, if you are going to appeal and ask them to change their decision, you are going to need evidence to back up your case. And finally, do get personalized specialist advice on your own case for home fees because it's going to be very different to anyone else's. And you could miss the fact and make crucial errors on your own eligibility for the particular universities that you are looking for. There's lots of hidden eligibility out there as well. Like I said, there's many different categories of home fees. So you might have a very borderline case in this particular category that we are talking about, but your circumstances might mean you're eligible in a different category. And we help families around the world identify how best they are eligible for home fees based on their own specific circumstances. So, of course, this is where we can help. We do support families with their fee status case. We have a fee status checker on our website, which is a very simple, easy to use tool where you enter your personal details and answer a few yes or no questions, and you'll be sent an automated summary of your potential eligibility. And this is a really great place to get started if you're looking to understand whether you could be eligible for home fees, or if you're looking for our support and want to use our service. This will get you started with some useful links and resources. And if you are possibly eligible for home fees, it will invite you to book in for a fee status appraisal. And at this step, we will do an assessment exactly the same that the universities will do when you apply to university. And we will give you a detailed report on your own eligibility, what your chances of home fees, some strengths and weaknesses of your case. And if you do have a legitimate case for home fees, we will invite you to book with our full fee status support, which is a comprehensive, unlimited support to try and maximize your chances of getting home fees with your application. And we know that this could save thousands or even hundreds of thousands of pounds in tuition fees. If you have a budding medic in your family, if you have more than one child applying to a university in the UK, the difference between home fees and overseas fees could run into the hundreds of thousands of pounds. Also, the families that we support do gain that peace of mind and reduce stress at that all-important exam period. So a well-prepared, well-argued case for home fees can speed up offers from universities. You can avoid going back and forth, answering questions, perhaps avoid going through lengthy appeals process, and just get that fee status resolved so you can get the offer in the bag and just concentrate on getting the best results and choosing the best offer for you. So in terms of next steps, the fee status checker, like I said, is a great place to start. That QR code will take you to our website where you can do the fee status checker. It will take only a couple of minutes. There's a lot more useful information and resources on our website, including blog articles, testimonials from families we've supported previously, plus links to our social media channels. If you are working at a school, we partner with many schools all around the world. I do travel each year and do presentations and seminars directly to parents in schools. If I haven't been to your school or you want to know the next time I'm coming to your school, please do get in touch. I'd love to hear from you. If you would like me to come to your school, and perhaps you can put me in touch with your senior school leaders or university careers counselling team. I can liaise with them and really get some good information for everyone at your school. You can also reach us there on our inbox. But that's the end of our presentation today. So hopefully we've got some questions. I'm sure we might have some questions. If you've got any questions, pop them in the Q&A. I can see we've got a couple already, and we'll cover all of those off for you. So Helen's asked the first question, and Helen's asked, should you put a UK address on a UCAS form? Now, that's a really good question. The UCAS forms are pretty tricky, actually. So the online UCAS form, you do one application for the 5 choices you get through UCAS. And actually on the UCAS form, there's no way to indicate whether you are a home fee payer or an overseas fee payer. There's no box to tick. So everybody applies on the same basis. Now, there is a section on the form that is new. It was new in the last cycle, and it's called Where You Live. And it was specifically brought in to help universities assess the fee status of those applying. So it asks you where you have been living for the 3-year period relevant for the fee status application. So it asks you for the current address, and this is the address where the child has been living day to day and going to school. So you put that address in. If it's been less than 3 years, it will then ask you for your previous address and so on until you cover the required period. Now, on this part, on this section where you're adding your address, you do have the ability to indicate the reason that you are living at this address. And there are a number of different choices. You can indicate that it's your permanent home. You can also indicate that it's a temporary address because of parents' employment. So that could be relevant for many people living outside of the UK. When you've covered the required period, it will ask you one more additional question, and it will ask you what is your permanent address. And you have the ability to choose one of the addresses you've already added, or you have the ability to add a further address. So if you're a British family, you're living abroad because you're working at an international school and you're adding your international address for that purpose, you then have the ability to add a UK address as your permanent home to indicate that you believe you still have an ordinary residence and a permanent home in the UK. In fact, we have a blog article on our website all about that section of the form. So yes, do go onto our website. It describes the form in that respect. So yes, in most cases, you could be adding a UK address, but you would also be needing to add the address where you're physically living outside of the UK. Again, this section is a little bit different for everyone. So you need to be really cautious about following what other people have done. It might not be the same for you. So really important to check that out. Thanks for the question, Helen. We've got another question here. UK citizens and our son lived in the UK until secondary school, wishes to return for university. If a family member is based in the UK, such as grandparents or parents, sadly, our son's grandparents have passed away, but we stay with his aunt during the summer school holidays each year. And we have bank info, driver's license linked to her address. Is this sufficient? Thank you for that question. That's a really good question related to ordinary residence and the home base address. So yes, it's possible that that could be accepted. So when it comes to the home base address, home ownership or property ownership is not the most important thing. It's showing that this address is available and accessible for you to use. So if you don't own any property in the UK, or perhaps you might own a home in the UK, but you rent it out to tenants, then it is still possible that you could have a case if perhaps you use a relative's address as your home base in the UK. So grandparents are largely accepted by universities as a family home where you could have an ordinary residence. Wider relatives may not be as successful. Some universities may not accept that, but many universities could accept an auntie's address as a family home where you can have that ordinary residence. So absolutely, it is possible, but there will be many other factors that will also play a part. So it's not one single thing that is going to make the final difference in a case such as this. So yeah, really important again when it comes to assumptions or myths. One myth is I own a property in the UK, I must be fine. Well, that's not necessarily the case. The flip side is I don't own any homes in the UK, I can't be eligible. Well, that's not the case either. So it is very much dependent on your individual circumstances. Hope that's really helpful for you. Osama's asked if my child starts the Scottish school system in year 10, will they be eligible for home fees? That's a good question, and there's no simple answer to this question. There's going to be a few other dependent factors here. So if your child is living permanently in the UK and going to school for year 10 onwards, so they've had at least 3 years of schooling and residence in the UK, then that could be helpful to get home fees because you have that ordinary residence. However, if they are at school because they're at boarding school and you as parents are living outside of the UK, then it's not a guarantee that they will get home fee status because universities are going to probably take the view that his permanent home is with his parents outside of the UK. So again, you are going to need to show this requirement. Now, of course, if the child has been living and going to school in the UK in Scotland for 3 years, and their parents have also been living in the UK for 3 years, then yes, they would be in line for home fees if they can show that settled status. So if you're a British national, or if you have indefinite leave to remain, yes, you are in line for home fees if you apply to English universities or Wales or Northern Ireland. In fact, in Scotland, you don't need to be settled. So that is a key difference in Scotland. So even if you're living in Scotland and you're applying to a Scottish university, perhaps you might be on a temporary visa, like a skilled visa or a British national overseas visa if you're from Hong Kong. You just need to show that 3 years of ordinary residence and show that you are lawfully on a visa, and potentially you can get home fees. So thank you for those questions. I think there was a question that I noticed when people were registering about year abroad. What are the fees when it comes to a year abroad? Can you get home fees? So for a university degrees where it incorporates a year abroad, as I mentioned earlier at the start, your fee status doesn't change during your degree. So if you get assessed as a home fee payer, you will pay home fees for the entire duration of the course. And for years abroad, you'll need to check that with the individual university and the individual course. Many will have a lower tuition fee or just a token tuition fee for that year abroad while you're not engaged in classes at the university. You're maybe at a partner university elsewhere in the UK. So that will might vary, but generally, no, it won't make any difference. The year abroad doesn't make any difference to your overall tuition fees for your degree and for that year as well. So I think maybe there's one more question. That's it. Yeah. So thank you so much for joining me today. We look forward to supporting you. Like I said, if you're working in a school, please do get in touch. You can contact me on email. If you find me on LinkedIn, I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn because I really want to support are teachers and employees and school leaders in international schools and build that network to really provide the best support for this really tricky issue. So thank you very much for joining me today. Look out for our next session. If you're coming back to the UK, you've got a chance to come and meet with me or another advisor from UK Study Options and discuss your own case and get a real clarity on your own specific case for home fees. So thanks again for coming, and we look forward to supporting you.